Hi, this is Mark Allen, 6-time Ironman Triathlon World Champion and author of The Art of Competition. Do you want to transform your entire experience in the sport of triathlon? If you do, come put that transformation in place at the Triathlon Research High Performance Camp in Boulder, Colorado from August 25th through 29th. I'll be there for the closing day of this amazing camp, and I can't tell you how excited I am to be a part of it. I'll be presenting some thought-provoking insights from my most recent book, The Art of Competition, where I will show you how you can get more out of the sport and how you can transfer those principles to all areas of your life. I'll also be there for the entire day's worth of workouts for the grand finale of your 5 days exploring and experiencing new levels in your triathlon performance. If you sign up for the Triathlon Research Camp, you'll get a free copy of my book, which I'll be happy to sign for you at the dinner that we'll all share together on the closing day. The Triathlon Research Camp is going to be incredible. To take part in this once-in-a-lifetime experience, go to triathlonresearch.org/camp. But please hurry, as spots are going to be limited so that we can provide you with the best possible personal coaching experience.
Welcome to Triathlon Research, the podcast that brings together the world's best triathlon coaches, athletes, equipment experts, and medical professionals to get you the right information that you need to race past your personal best and get more enjoyment out of your triathlon journey. Triathlon Research, where we teach you how to train smart. Here's your host, Suzanne Atkinson, MD, founder and head coach of Steel City Endurance.
Hi there, this is Suzanne Atkinson with Triathlon Research, and today I'm interviewing Amy Javens. Amy is a former elementary school teacher of 17 years. She's a mother of 3 teenage daughters, and she's a professional triathlete. Hi, Amy. Thanks for joining me this morning.
Hi, Suzanne. Thanks for having me.
Amy, I'm really looking forward to getting to know you a little bit better on this podcast and just talking a little bit about your current career as a professional triathlete, some of the things that you excel at that other people seem to struggle with, for example, training in the heat, and also some of the struggles that you've had in the past overcoming injuries. And I'd also like to learn more about your personal life and how you manage to fit all of those responsibilities into training as a professional.
Sounds good.
Okay. I'd like to start with background. I just learned that you were an elementary school teacher for 17 years. That's quite a long time to be devoted to one career, especially in this day and age. What was that like for you, and how did you get involved in elementary school?
Well, ever since I was a child, I always knew I wanted to be an elementary teacher or in education. I love learning. I love teaching. I love just learning about new things and gaining knowledge. So it was a really good fit for me. I also was involved in sports my whole entire life. I played basketball. I ran track and field. At a young age, I was a softball player, and I liked the idea of becoming a coach. So being a teacher and being a coach sort of fit hand in hand with each other. And so that's the path that I decided I wanted to pursue. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I enjoyed my 17 years as a teacher in the elementary ages. I taught kindergarten most of the time, and I would have to say kindergarten was probably the most physically stressful teaching position that one can take on. It's not an easy position at all, but I enjoyed every years that I put into my teaching. Being around the younger generations, it was just such a pleasant experience. And I had resigned a few years ago for a couple of reasons, but I may go back to that path, in 5 or 10 years down the road. But right now, I am still being a teacher with some coaching, fitness coaching with a small amount of clients, and hopefully in the next few months I'll be getting into some triathlon coaching. So coaching is teaching, and they fit hand in hand too. So
I'm sure.
Yeah, so that's how I got into my profession of being an educator.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you were teaching in elementary school, were you doing any sports coaching at that time or competing in sports yourself?
Yes. When I taught elementary, I had coached basketball, 7th grade girls basketball for a couple of years. I was a track and field coach. Actually, this year I revisited that and became an assistant coach with my alma mater team. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I've been on and off coaching for probably the last 15 to 17 years, whether it's in basketball or track and field in the school system.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And when you were in school yourself, track was your main sport, right?
It was, yes.
What events did you do on the track team?
I was a hurdler. I was primarily a hurdler. I did some jumping and I did sprinting. I excelled at hurdles. I was state champion in 1990 in the 300-meter hurdles at the PIAA state championship meet. I went on to college at Kent State University in Ohio. Mm-hmm. I ran for them 1 year, and then I transferred to a smaller university near home called Slippery Rock. You probably know Slippery Rock very well because you're from the Pittsburgh area, and
Definitely.
Other people might know Slippery Rock just because it's a really cool name for a university.
Yeah, it is.
But I ran for them for a year or two, and then I got injured. I ended up having chronic Achilles tendonitis.
Wow.
So that's pushed me out of my track and field career, I guess we could say. Yeah.
So I'm going to come back to your ankle injuries or your Achilles injuries, but I want to sort of hook the attention of the triathletes who are listening here and jump fast forward in time, and then we'll fill in the gaps in between.
Sure.
So you're currently a professional triathlete, and you're in your second year of being a professional?
Right. I turned professional in October of last year.
Oh, so that recently. Great.
Yeah. In 2012, I raced Ironman Louisville, and I had met pro qualification at that race. Mm-hmm. And I held off going professional for about 9 or 10 months, and then I decided last fall it was either now or never. Yeah. I'm not a young pup, so I thought I better do it now before I start aging a little bit more.
Yeah.
I guess I'm a newbie pro at the age of 42.
Wow, that's fantastic.
It's sort of a neat kind of combination. I'm a developing pro and I'm 42, so it's a little bit of a juggling act, but mm-hmm. It's a really cool experience. I've met really wonderful, amazing people in the process.
I'm sure you meet a lot of people as you're going through those races, and I imagine before you turned pro, had you sort of developed a group of people that you were seeing at all the races, rivals and people that you learned and grew from?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Locally, Pittsburgh area, we really have a lot of triathletes. Isn't the Pittsburgh Triathlon Club is one of the fastest growing tri clubs in the nation, I believe?
Yeah, it was at least a year or two ago, definitely. I don't know if it still is, but
yeah, and that's really encouraging. And on the elite level, we have quite a few elite triathletes from the Pittsburgh area, Western PA, even the Eastern Ohio mm-hmm. area. So, I've been able to train with a few of them. Some of them are teammates of mine. And I've also, worked hard at developing my own little training group of people that I know that'll push me and help me out, within my own closer community, because I'm about an hour north of Pittsburgh, so traveling isn't realistic all the time. But most definitely, it's a nice network. I think triathletes understand triathletes. Mm-hmm. We're our own little culture, and you gain inspiration and encouragement from those people who are a lot like ourselves.
Yeah, it is really nice to have that many people so close to us. I live about an hour from you, closer to downtown Pittsburgh. And when I started doing triathlons about, it's been 9 years ago, and I moved back to Pittsburgh, I honestly thought I was the only triathlete in Pittsburgh. Sure. And it was just because we didn't have a networking group back then. And when I would drive around the city and I'd see triathlon bumper stickers on people's cars, I'd get really excited.
Yeah, I have to meet that person.
Yeah, exactly. I have to introduce myself. I'm another triathlete. So it was really fantastic when the the triathlon club got founded. I think that the city had reached a point of critical mass where there were enough other triathletes looking for people, just with similarities, whether to train with or just to hang out and learn from. And now I'm not sure what the official paid club membership is. It's several hundred people. The Facebook group has over 700 people, and pretty much you can find people in the Pittsburgh Triathlon Club in quite a wide radius around southwestern PA, not just in the city. So
right.
There is a lot of support around here. Now, you live in a tiny town called Hermitage, PA. Mm-hmm. What's the population of Hermitage?
You know what? I'm embarrassed to say this, but I don't know. It's Butler, PA, a little bit smaller than Butler, PA. Hermitage, we're surrounded by multiple communities. Mm-hmm. Sharon, Farrell, Sharpsville, West Middlesex. Yeah, but as far as the exact number, I'm embarrassed to tell you. I don't know.
That's okay. And it was recently voted one of the top 10 places to live in the state of Pennsylvania. So congratulations on making an excellent choice.
I know.
I guess, and the reason I'm sort of emphasizing that you live in a small town, or smaller than Pittsburgh anyway, is that I'm always surprised to hear about triathletes that just live everywhere and take advantage of the more rural roads that you may have an hour north of a city. Yeah. How was it as far as training when you were just starting out? Did you train around your home? Did you have people up there to train with?
Yeah, I really tell everyone I love where I live because I'm not urban that it's an inconvenience to jump on my bike in my driveway and go somewhere. Mm-hmm. I can jump on my bike. If I take a left going out of my driveway, I can go into Ohio and ride in the farmlands and catch some wind and catch some flatness. Yeah. If I take a right going out of my driveway on my bike, I can ride south and towards the New Wilmington area, which is Amish country, and catch some hills that way.
Oh, that sounds gorgeous.
Yeah, and they're all rural roads. Yeah. And pretty good shoulders, because we have nice winters, so when they build the roads around here, they put nice shoulders on the road because of the snow removal. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of roads that I feel very, very safe on, and rarely do I do have some issues of drivers that maybe are ignorant of the 4-foot law in PA, but most of the time, 98% of the time, considerate motorists around here.
That's really great.
Yeah, but I live 10 minutes away from the Shenango Lake, so I do all my open water swims there. I have a trail that's literally a half a mile away from my house that I go down and do my recovery runs on, and sometimes I do my tempo runs on the run trail or the bike trail. So yeah, I think it's nice that I'm rural enough that I can bike anywhere, I can run anywhere, and I have an open water, an open body of water that I can swim at. However, we are very much lacking in our area of swimming pools. And my daughters, all three of them were swimmers at one time. The two oldest are swimmers still to this day, but we have to travel to get to a pool. We have some local pools, but they're not of high quality. So for myself, I travel to either Newcastle, PA, or Youngstown, Ohio, to get to a pool, which is about a 30-minute drive. I belong to the master's program at Newcastle Y. My master's coach is there. Like I said, that's 30 minutes. But my daughters are involved in the USA swimming program, which involves them to travel to Seneca Valley, which is about a 50-minute drive each way, to a nice quality USA swimming program. So the only complaint I would have to say about my location and coordinating it with my sport is the lack of pools. But I'm also 10 minutes away from the lake, so I guess I can't do too much.
You have a good trade-off. And right. I think that the quality of the training and how easy or the lack of barriers in order to get out and do your riding or your running, I think that's really important for triathletes. I know that personally I would probably be out on my bike a lot more if I did live more rural.
Right.
When I was doing my residency in Danville, PA, it's Amish country. And I could leave the hospital, get on my bike and go for a ride for 2 or 3 hours and often not be passed by any cars at all. Maybe I would be passed by a buggy. So I was definitely on my bike a lot more, training time wise when I first started triathlons than I am now living in the city, just because of convenience. So I think it really depends on how motivated you are and what you're training for and what your training needs are. Definitely living in the rural areas is an advantage in that respect.
Right. And, I do CompuTrainer. I do it quite frequently. And I think it's such a great training tool. It's so specific. And, if I want to do tempos on a CompuTrainer, I know I'm going to accomplish them very well on a CompuTrainer. If I go out to the Ohio farmland to do my tempos, which is pretty flat, I cross my fingers that I'm not going to have any crazy crosswinds, because when the crazy crosswinds happen, it really makes those tempos tough. But at the same time, it's real world experience, and racing is real world experience. So yeah, it's great to be riding outside, but even if you're not able to ride outside and you're not from a rural area, the CompuTrainer trainer just does a great work for you in your training.
Yeah, so it sounds like a blend of the fitness that you gain specifically with the CompuTrainer work, but also real world bike handling experience on the roads with winds and such is a good blend.
Most definitely.
Tell me what it's like to make that transition as an elite age grouper to a developing pro. Do you feel like you're competing amongst your peers, or do you feel like you have to play catch up for a few years? Or tell me what's going on as far as how you view yourself, maybe not in comparison to other pros, but your career trajectory.
Yeah, that's a really great question. We don't I don't compare myself to people. I compare myself to where I was a year ago at this time.
Yep.
I think that's part of when you become elite, you can't compare yourself. People are so different in the ways they need to train based on their physiology. People are different in where they are as far as developing and becoming a pro. But yeah, when I decided to compete professionally, I had some good conversations with my coach, and one of the first things he said is, I'm not going to train you any differently. And that makes complete sense, as basic as the 10% rule. We don't increase our volume or intensity over 10%. It's taking you from where you are and taking you to where you want to become. And following a certain protocol, we're not going to jump 30% in volume from, 1 month to the next month just because we decided we're going to compete professionally.
Right.
There has to be a regimented protocol that we have to follow to get there. We don't want to get injured. We don't want to get overtrained. We don't want to get burnout. So yeah, as far as making the jump from a elite age grouper to professional, not much difference in training. We just increase the volume steadily, see how our body reacts to it, see how we react in our overloads, if we can handle the overloads, and then most importantly, how do we recover after those overloads? Going into Ironman, the training system that I'm with is QT2. We have 2 weeks of overload, and we have a few weeks going into a race after that, which is our taper phase, and seeing, are we recovering well from that? And if we don't recover well from that, then maybe next overload we're not going to increase the volume. So yeah, as far as going from an elite age grouper to pro, really we're just following our schedule and trying to recover smarter and building the durability and being smart about it along the way.
Yeah. So you have the same coach now that you had before you turned pro. So you were consistent in that respect.
Right. I got into triathlon in 2005, and the reason I got into triathlon is I had some injuries from running. I had done some marathons, and I started having some running injuries. So I got into triathloning, and this is a very common story among a lot of triathletes about how I got into triathlon is, I was a runner and I was injured.
Yeah.
So, we learn how to cross-train and how much more forgiving that is on the body. So
the same reason I got into it, because all I was doing was running, and I didn't have time for running anymore. So for whatever reason, I thought triathlon would give me more time. But I had been mostly a single sport person, and then I got into triathlon because I figured it would be better for my body.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Right. Yeah, so I got into the sport in 2005 and just did like some local races and really, really enjoyed it. And I think the same year I got into it, I decided I was going to do a half Ironman, and I just self-coached myself. I had no clue what I was doing. And then the next year I told myself I'm going to do a full Ironman. So I did my very first full Ironman, self-coached.
Wow.
In 2006, it was Ironman Wisconsin, and it was like the post-baby phase. I need to lose 10 pounds. And do
an Ironman.
And so I'm going to do Ironman, yeah, right? So I did Ironman Wisconsin. That was the year it was like 50 degrees and freezing and raining, and I think it was one of the largest, it was one of the only Ironmans where they had like the largest do not finish because of the cold weather.
Oh, yeah.
So I did that race, and I think I came through the finish line at like 14:30, and just felt like a train ran into me. And I
and yet you continued.
I did. I took a year of recovery. I did some things for education to pursue my education degree, and rebalanced myself with my family. We adopted our first golden doodle that year. So instead of on my bike, I was at the dog park a lot, and just started really missing the sport again, and wanted to get a little bit more serious about it. So I hired my initial coach, and it was basically I wanted to just lean out and see what I could do if I had a coach. And I was with my initial coach for a few years, and then in 2012 I switched to my new coach, which is Tim Snow through QT2, and started with him in the summer of 2012. And I had actually got him as a coach about 7 weeks before Ironman Louisville.
Okay,
and
so
up to that time I did mostly Olympic and half Ironmans. Never trained the volume for Ironman.
Yeah.
So here my coach had me trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to get this girl ready in 7 weeks for Ironman Louisville?
Yeah, I think I remember talking to you right when you made the switch. I think it was you. At Pittsburgh Triathlon, you and I were having a chat about training, and you told me that you had just gotten a new coach. And
Yep. Because I think I was on my trainer at that time after the Pittsburgh Triathlon, because I had to get more volume in.
Yeah, exactly. I remember that conversation.
Yeah. So then I did Ironman Louisville, and really to my surprise, I finished second amateur. And I thought, oh boy, I think I like this longer distance.
So you really excelled, and it sounds like that was a bit of a surprise to you.
Yeah, I didn't really expect I would place that high, and it was very much a pleasant surprise. And so I was sold, and I debated for a while on if I was going to stay elite age grouper or if I was going to go on to the professional field. And I decided, it's either now or never. I've had some significant things happen in my life. I lost both my parents in the last few years to horrible diseases, my mom to Alzheimer's and my dad to ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease.
Yeah, that's a tough disease.
They are. They're incurable, tough diseases. And I think when we go through major things like that, it puts a different perspective on where we're at in our own lives. And that was really, those were some key factors of my decision to, I'm going to do it, because I don't know what 5 years down the road holds for me, or
Yeah.
I don't know what 10 years down the road holds for me. So I'm gonna see what I can do. So I decided last October to go professional, and my first pro race was at Ironman Cozumel, and of course, I had a little insecurities, like, do I belong in this field? What am I doing here? But I had a really great race for myself there. I finished 11th pro, and I was very pleased with my bike. I think I did a 508 or 509 on my bike in harsh conditions, which is but I like those conditions. Yeah, I like those conditions.
Yeah, we're going to talk about, I've got a couple things on my list to talk about with you still.
Great. So I walked away from that race like, okay, I think this is where I belong, and it was a good confidence booster for me.
That's wonderful. I really like the story of just sort of this gradual, ongoing transition that you've had. It's a very, you brought up the word rebalancing at one point, and it sounds to me like you just have been very open-minded and are following a process. You had, sound reasons for doing the first triathlon and then the next one, and well, let's see what could happen if I got a coach, and well, gee, I did really well. What would happen if I turned pro? And I really like sort of this open-ended, organic approach, and I'm very impressed by the comment that you made about how Tim said that he wasn't going to change your training once you became pro because you're still the same athlete.
Right.
And I just love that. We're not going to do anything drastic. Anytime you make a big change, there's always a risk that you're going to break something.
Right.
If what you've been doing is working, well, let's keep doing more of it.
Right. And the athlete-coach relationship is so important because it is organic, something that maybe Tim and I did a year or two ago, and over the process of getting to know each other and him getting to know what kind of athlete I am, what my physiology is, am I aerobic based, am I anaerobic based, those are things that we only learn through the process.
Right.
So, everything is a process. I think in this day and age, and I see this with my daughters a lot, and they're great, great kids, and my husband and I are bringing them up, to understand things are processes. And it's not like our text messaging where, boom, we have things instantly. It doesn't happen in a year or two.
It's instant fitness, right?
No, right, exactly. I was watching some 10-minute, I was on my CompuTrainer the other day doing a recovery ride, and I was watching some info commercial on the 10-minute blast. You can lose so many pounds if you do something in 10 minutes. And I think we live in the day and age where things are so instant, but it is a process. Life is a process, and especially the sport, development in this sport is a process. It's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah. I love that attitude so much. It really speaks to my personal philosophies as a coach. And I just sitting here chatting with you, I feel very calm and relaxed because I kind of get that sense from you. As a professional triathlete, you're just a normal person. You're an ordinary, mom of 3. You have a husband. You lead a balanced life. You've got realistic expectations, and yet your potential is wide open. You don't have a cap on your potential. You're not saying, I'm going to be a pro and I'm not going to be happy until I podium this month, and if I don't podium this month, I'm going to be very upset and I'm going to work twice as hard. I think sometimes those kind of drastic beliefs, even though they're lofty goals, and I think we all need to have stretch goals, but I think they can just insert so many negative pressures and negative connotations that if I don't do this, something bad's going to happen, as opposed to if I do this thing consistently, I'm only going to continue to improve. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. The minute we tell ourselves, I'm going to qualify for Kona, or I'm going to get on the podium for this or that, we're setting ourselves up for failure because we can't control what else is going on around us, as far as other people, who's going to show up on race day or whatnot.
Right.
We can only control our process and how we get there. And if the stars are all aligned in the right place and we we get to be on the podium or we get to go to podium or Kona, that's awesome. But it's a process. It's you look at your data, training data. Last week I was doing so many watts on my tempos. This week I'm 1% higher. So those are the little things that we celebrate, along the way.
That's excellent. So you've done, how many pro races have you done so far? Just last fall?
I have done 4.
Okay.
I've done 2 half Ironmans and 2 full Ironmans, and I'm getting ready for Ironman Louisville.
Oh, great. And that's the one where you qualified to turn pro in the first place, right?
Yep. Ironman Louisville tugs on my heartstrings. I like that race, yep.
And will this be your first time doing that race again since that second overall finish?
Yes.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited to go back into the heat and humidity.
Mm-hmm. So, it's been wonderful getting to know your background. And when I do these podcasts, I really like to see if my guests have some practical things that listeners can learn from, because I think that's how we get better, both as coaches and as athletes, is learning from the specific things that other people are doing. And do I want to try that or not try that? So I've got a list here, and we can go in whatever order you want. We chatted about family and balancing life. Family, you've got 3 active daughters and a husband and a small business between the two of you training people. I want to talk to you about your Achilles injury, so injury recovery and the PRP therapy that you did. And then I also want to talk about training and racing in the heat.
All right.
Which would you like to start with?
We can talk about the PRP.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, as I spoke about before, when I was in college, I had developed chronic Achilles tendonitis, and that took me out of track and field altogether. And over the years, between college and when I started to compete competitively in triathlon, it was probably about a 15-year span. It started to resurface again in my initial years of triathlon. And in 2009, 2010, I was able to compete in Clearwater at the Half Ironman World Championship. And I remember in 2010 walking away from that race not being able to walk because of the Achilles, my chronic Achilles inflammation. Yeah, they were pretty bad. My husband is a physical therapist, so we had tried almost every modality to be able to get over these Achilles injuries. And I mean, you name it, ionphoresis, E-stem, ibuprofens, ice baths, strengthening. I mean, I tried everything. Yeah. And I was very discouraged after 2010. I didn't know what was I going to do. I'm like, should I just become a roadie and start being a cyclist? Maybe I'll just do open water swims, can improve on that front. And I'm like, no, you know what? I really love the sport. And I started hearing about procedures called prolotherapy and PRP therapy. And my husband was a little bit literate about it. And in 2009, you were starting to hear more and more about these procedures. And I was a good candidate to receive PRP therapy. And for those people who don't know what PRP therapy is, PRP stands for platelet-rich plasma, which is a portion of your blood that is drawn and inserted into a injured tendon or muscle in hopes to speed up the recovery of that area. So I decided to go for PRP therapy down at UPMC Center of Sports Medicine with Dr. Musal, who was also a triathlete too. And he did the PRP therapy with me. And what it involves is your blood is drawn, it's put into a centrifuge, and it's spun. And so your red blood cell part is separated from your plasma portion of your blood. So what the doctors do is they take the plasma portion of your blood and they re-inject it, like I said before, into your injured area. So I went down to UPMC in December of 2010, and I did 3 sessions 2 weeks apart, and I got multiple injections in both of my Achilles.
So you did one Achilles the first session, and then the other Achilles the next session?
I did just one Achilles the first session, my worst Achilles, which was my left side, and then when I went back, and then depending on how much plasma they draw, like if they can draw a lot of plasma out of you, or a lot of blood out of you and a lot of plasma out of you, they can do multiple injections at each session.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it depends on how hydrated you are and if they can get good blood from you. Yeah, so I think that the first session I did the left Achilles, and I think I might have had two injections in that left Achilles. Mm-hmm. And then 2 weeks later, I went back and got multiple injections in both the Achilles. And that made it a very interesting post 2 weeks after.
Oh, I bet.
Because I had shuffle walk everywhere I went.
Yeah, well, that would be the other reason for separating them, is because you would at least have one good ankle, okay ankle to walk on while the other one was healing from the injections, right? Right. Yeah, because we, with my husband's physical therapy background, we immobilized that left Achilles for about 6 days after my first session. But then when I went back for the second session, we did both. So that, like I said, that made it a tricky 2 weeks because I couldn't really wear 2 walking boots. Yeah.
At the same time. Yeah.
Even wearing one walking boot is tough.
Oh, and I know, isn't it? So I was teaching kindergarten at the same time. So, 2 walking boots and doing the hokey every day with 5-year-olds was not going to work.
Uh-huh.
So, but I learned how to sort of shuffle walk my way through it. And then I went for my third session 2 weeks after and got multiple injections in both of the Achilles too. And it's not very pleasant procedure. I had no painkillers I didn't go under. They actually advocate that you do not use ibuprofens because they want your body's natural healing process to occur. Mm-hmm. It was very painful. Like it was by the second or third session, I really just had a grimace every time I went in there because I knew it was going to really hurt. Yeah,
you've probably had a smile on your face the first day because you were looking forward to it, and then the smile probably went away by the end.
Right, it was like childbirth, You're like, after childbirth, you're like, I am not doing that again, and then you have your second child, and you're like, I'm not doing that again, and you have your third one.
Yeah. So after you have the injections, it's a couple of weeks of the boot, and then I imagine you had to probably go through physical therapy again, or what kind of modalities did you use?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I did everything at home. My husband prescribed everything for me at home. I just started with just basic T-band work, sitting down. Mm-hmm. Pointing my toes, bringing them back, pointing my toes, bringing them back, doing them different angles. I started with just basic, stretch T-band work to body weight strengthening, on the side of the stairs, doing eccentric calf raises, eventually to weighted strengthening. And I sort of progressed organically. I love that word you use. I just progressed on my feedback, how I was feeling. If I was a little bit sore the next day, I knew, okay, I'm not going to progress. I'm just going to stay at 3 sets of 10 until I get a nice positive post day and feeling good. And just a lot of calf raises. So as far as strengthening goes, I was on strengthening pretty much every day with them. I also did some water therapy. I bought funny looking water shoes that that I would go to the pool, and I would run in the pool with them. I would start with water that was about neck deep, and then, go closer and closer to the shallow end as I progressed.
Oh, so you're adding body weight, basically.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yep. And eventually in the water, I ended up doing running in the shallow end, and even some plyometric kind of workouts. And eventually I was able to do plyometric workouts out of water. When I really started getting to some of the plyometric workouts, I knew my Achilles were really coming around, because if I had if I tried doing that when I had my initial chronic.
Yeah, I'm sure that really inhibited what you were able to do, not just because of the pain, but certain activities like plyometrics would just be impossible with the chronic Achilles problems, right?
Right, exactly. So, we increase volume, increase intensity as I progress through them on the PT end. I always say a problem is a problem. A problem is a problem until you fix it. A lot of times when we have injuries as runners, there's something biomechanically going on that may be causing that injury. And so, we did a lot of treadmill running where my husband would watch me and try to figure out, okay, what's going on? Why are you having this Achilles tendonitis issue? And with my past being a hurdler, I was always trained to have these enormous, gigantic strides because I was a three-step. Yeah, I was a three-stepper in the 100-meter hurdles, and you had to stride out to go over the hurdles. So I had huge stride lengths, and I also, came down on my foot a little differently than what an ideal distance runner should be coming down, on the stride. So we revamped my gait a bit. I tried to become more of like a mid-foot kind of striker. I increased my cadence, which was really hard for me because I was like I said, I had these long strides. My cadence was slow, so I increased my running cadence. I listened to a lot of songs on my Walkman that had 90 plus.
I read that in the Lava article, and I wondered how you react when you hear those songs now. Do you still enjoy listening to those same songs, or do you get a wave of nausea?
I know, really. It makes me chuckle, but I replace those songs with other songs along the way. The Gambler is a perfect, Kenny Rogers, The Gambler, that's a perfect 90-plus cadence song. But yeah, so I would listen to songs that had 90-plus cadence and made sure that I was running to the beat of them. And so that was like ingrained into my head. So yeah, as far as fixing my gait, that helped my progression. And I also am a firm believer of massage work, whether it's ART or myofascial. It's important to realign those fibers as they're healing themselves. And it was really interesting. My husband would do some of the massage work on me, and he was amazed on how I would have these nodules initially on my Achilles post PRP, and as the months progressed, the nodules just basically disappeared.
Wow. How often were you getting that kind of therapy? Was it daily or twice a week?
Oh no. I would say once every week or two.
Okay, so not all that frequently.
No.
I'm thinking in terms of someone, anyone listening from home who may be trying to do some of this on their own without professional intervention, just the recovery tools that we talk about a lot, foam rollers, stretching, that sort of thing, active stretching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it wasn't as much as you would think so. Like I would say once every week or two. Okay. We would do the massage work. Yeah, and I stayed away from ibuprofens and just, built those tendons back the best I could build them. My husband compared them to a frayed rope.
Yeah.
When it gets frayed, all those little tendon pieces they fray away. And so when you build them back up, they're not going to be like the original rope.
Yeah.
When you build them back up, you're going to try your best to make everything go back into place.
Sure. How long was the total healing time, would you say, until you were back to the point where you felt like you could do your running that you were doing before?
Yeah, I was probably off running for November, for about 3 months.
Okay.
2.5 to 3 months. And I was back on the starting line at Columbia Triathlon in May of that year. And I was able to compete in May, and my PRP was in December. So 6 months, about a 6-month process.
And that was in 2011?
Yes.
And how did you finish in the Columbia Triathlon?
I finished in my age group. I can't remember exactly where I placed, I might have won my age group.
Yeah, I'm looking at your website. That was kind of a baited question. You actually won your age group that race, so that's a fantastic return to play, I would say.
Yeah, and it wasn't so much going on the podium. I was on the podium and my legs weren't hurting.
Oh, yeah. What a big difference, huh?
Yeah, like just finishing that race, and because I ran with chronic Achilles pain for about a whole year leading up to that PRP.
Wow.
And so just like going to the finish line and not having pain, I was like, wow, is this for real?
Uh-huh. And how did that change your outlook for continuing training? I mean, I have to imagine it was a complete 180.
Yeah, I mean, it really made me focus a lot more on recovery and maintenance. To this day, I do calf raises about every day. Pretty much every day I do maintenance work on my Achilles. I sleep with dorsiflexion splints, which pull my toe back, and it makes my Achilles be in a stretched state as I sleep. I look really funny going to bed every night.
I bet.
But to me, it's worth it for me being able to run every day. So yeah, I mean, I've learned that, I have to maintain them. Recovery is huge. And, especially at my age, recovery is even huger.
Yeah, because as we get older, it takes longer to recover. So it's really important to be on top of those things.
Right.
I want to get to a couple of these other topics, at least one of the other ones, without going too long in our podcast, because it's a beautiful Friday morning, and I want to let you get on with the rest of your day as soon as we can. But I wanted to talk a little bit about training and racing in the heat. You and I had chatted yesterday. We've had a little bit of a heat wave in Western PA for the last week or so, and then a cold front came through. So yesterday was nice and cool, and I commented how much energy I had compared to the previous hot days. And you said that you tended to be drawn towards races in hotter climates because you really excel in that respect. How did you discover that heat was your friend as opposed to the enemy, and how do you deal with training in the heat, and what do you think makes you better at it than other people?
Yeah, I think certain people can do really well in the heat, and I think there's certain people that cannot do really well in the heat, and I think it's just based on how our bodies are put together. I discovered that I did well in the heat when I did Ironman Louisville in 2012. I was able to maintain a pretty good pace especially on the marathon, and manage the heat pretty well. My body just seemed to take it pretty well. So when I race plan, I always plan for races that have a little bit more of a heat factor, because I feel that gives me a little bit of an advantage over somebody who just cannot handle the heat very well.
Right.
As far as preparing for it, this summer has been great for us in Western PA. We've had a hot, humid summer, so it's just been exactly what I've ordered, but now we have this polar vortex coming in, and I'm like wearing long sleeve shirts all of a sudden. So I'm not real happy about this week being cold, and tomorrow's long ride being in the 60s and rainy. So I to wear like my bike coat tomorrow when I'm training. But yeah, I mean, as far as the summer goes, if you have a hot, humid summer, that's a no-brainer. It's going to prepare you well for a race like Louisville or Kona or Texas or Cozumel. Those are all hot races. As far as like when I did Cozumel last year, I just, trained, I acclimate myself to the heat. And one way I do that is on my trainer, I wear long sleeve shirts. Also, I get my body ready to taking in lots of fluids. So usually I take in a large water bike bottle of Perform about every 40 minutes. So I'll start drinking, sport fuel every 30 minutes, and I'll try to get to a point where I can drink a whole bottle of sport fuel in every 20 minutes, getting ready for a hot race, so that I'm training my gut to take in lots of fluid that is going to be needed for that upcoming race in the heat.
Right.
So I not only get myself used to training while being hot, I also get my gut used to training with putting as much fuel as I can in it.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that is maybe a little bit of a misunderstanding or misconception about being heat acclimated, a heat acclimated athlete will actually use more fluids than a non-heat acclimated, or at least the same individual. If Suzanne Atkinson is training in 50 degree weather and does a 50 degree race versus Suzanne Atkinson training in 90 degree weather for a 90 degree race, I'm going to use a lot more fluid in the 90 degree race. My body becomes more efficient at cooling itself and sweating. And so you actually sweat. Maybe that seems obvious. You actually sweat more, but some people think that as you get more acclimated to the heat, that you don't need it, that you need less water, and that's what heat acclimatization is. But you actually need significantly higher amount of water, even as your body continues to adapt to the heat. Have you found that to be the case?
Oh yeah, most definitely. So much. Well, most importantly, sport fuel. Not so much. You don't want to be drinking lots of water because then it's just going to take all the electrolytes right out of you. But yeah, you do. I mean, your body's going to need more liquids. I know if I go out and say this weekend it's 60 degrees and I ride, I'm probably going to be going to the bathroom a lot more in a 60 degree ride than I will in a 80 degree ride.
Right.
But so then I sort of have to adjust my liquid, my sport fuel that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you have to get your body used to taking in lots of sport fuel. That's really, really important. This sort of sounds funny, but I sort of coined the phrase with my coach, P-score. And, we have like T-pace, T-score. I mean, we have all these abbreviations in triathlon, like, oh, what's your pace? What's your T-pace or whatever. But, you want to make sure you're going to the bathroom, especially on those long bikes. And how many times are you going to the bathroom? That's really important to count that, right? Because it's telling you if you're keeping yourself in a hydrated state or not.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so just, noticing those things, those are really, really important.
So I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify what I meant by requiring more water. It's obvious that you would probably need more water when in a hot environment than a cold, but as far as adapting to the heat, let's say that someone is going to Florida to train for 2 weeks. When they arrive on day one, they're probably going to be taking in a lot more fluids than they would back at home in their cool environment. But during those 2 weeks, as they continue to adapt, they'll actually be able to process more and more fluid, and that's a good thing. And what people think is that as you adapt, you need less fluid than you did on the first day in the hot weather. That's what I meant by needing more fluid, not necessarily hot environment compared to a cold environment. I just wanted to clarify that.
Absolutely.
You mentioned, sport fuels. Do you do anything fancy with electrolytes? Do you take any electrolyte capsules?
No, my fuel of choice is Ironman Perform, is because it has such a great sodium content in it and a great carb combination.
And that works really well for you?
It works very well for me in hot environments, like if you're going to go to a Louisville or a Kona where it's humid and it's hot. I'll pop an electrolyte or two in addition to that on the bike. And then on the run, I'll pop an extra electrolyte or two in addition to that. Depending on what your fuel source is, depends on how much more supplementation you need as far as salt tablets go. I know like the regular Gatorade does not have nearly the amount of sodium that something like Perform does. So if I'm out on a 6-hour training ride and I go by a convenience store and I need to get Gatorade because I'm out of my Perform, I get the Gatorade, but I'm also dumping a salt stick tablet in that Gatorade because I need to get that sodium content up. So yeah, I mean, I'm an advocate of salt tablets. Yeah. And there's certain times that you will need them.
Yeah, I think that it's important for people training for long course. Ironman, obviously more important than a half iron, especially for hot environments, is that we keep track of how much sodium we're using during our training. And if that training ride was a massive failure, what I like to do is go back and look at how much fluid did I take, how many calories, but also how much sodium did I take in. And then I can make adjustments during training, either for myself or make a suggestion for an athlete until we find a level where they finish a long training ride, they feel really good, they've got energy left over, and then we kind of start working with that as a baseline.
Yep, exactly. And we train the way we race with as far as taking in, our nutrition. A lot of people show up on race day and it's the first time they're trying their nutrition plan.
Right. Nothing new on race day.
Yeah, big no. So half the battle is just getting that nutrition nailed. And you're training a couple months before race day.
Mm-hmm. So just a couple, we're running out of time, and I apologize for that, but it's been really enjoyable chatting with you. I just want to talk a little bit about family. You're a mom of 3 teenage girls. You're married. You've got a part-time business with your husband. Your husband's got a full-time business as a physical therapist as well. Tell us what it's like to balance all that with your training as a professional triathlete.
Yeah, I think no matter where you are in your life, if you're a mother or if you're a professional and you're working a full-time job and you're trying to be a professional athlete, there's always a balance that you're always trying to reach that balance. One thing that helps me is on my recovery days and the recovery periods of my year as an athlete, which is usually after my last goal race of the year. I really try to just hone in on family, and if I can put a blanket over the bike on the Confi trainer and forget it's there. Yeah. Which, our coaches do a really great job saying, I don't want you to even look at that bike, I want you to do other stuff. And it's rebalancing is so important, because if we don't rebalance, it's just so hard to start back again. Yeah. You want to get to the point where you're rebalancing, where you're really excited to get back. And if you're not really excited to get back to the grind of training, then you might need a little bit more time of rebalancing time. Right. And that's both physically and emotionally and mentally. So like on my recovery days, I really try to rest. That's really important, and stay off of my feet. But I also try to do something with my children. Mm-hmm. Like today's a recovery day. I have a little bit of a harder swim later, but later we're going to go blueberry picking. So I try to put it into my schedule that way. And, I've also simplified my life a lot over the last few years. I was working full time. I had 2 ill parents, taking care of my children, and they have some special needs too. My oldest one's a type 1 diabetic, and my 2 youngest ones were just diagnosed with celiac a few years ago. Mm-hmm. So I got to a point in my life where I really needed to figure out, okay, what do I let go of? What do I let go of? And I really enjoyed my teaching years, but we sort of experimented the year my one daughter got sick with her celiac. I took a medical leave, and we sort of tested waters to see, okay, financially, can we afford me not working and being at home and being for the family more? And so we tested those waters, and we felt comfortable that, okay, I think I can maybe resign from teaching, and there's some other things that I can do on the side, like some fitness coaching that will help us meet some, make some ends meet. So I sort of had to get to a point, know what to let go and what to really focus on. And there were, I had a couple deaths with my parents, and both my parents had passed away. And during that time, I kept coming back to training. It was sort of like my stress reliever. It was my constant in my life. It was something I could come back to that helped me get through those things. And then that was the time period that, I got the second amateur at Louisville, and I started progressing. And I'm like, well, maybe God's pointing me in this direction, to go this way. So now I'm home. I don't have to work outside the home. I work in the home off my computer, which is really nice. It works well with my lifestyle as a triathlete, because when I'm resting, I have my feet up and I'm working on my computer. And I've simplified my life a lot. Yeah. So that I only have a few priorities instead of tons of them, and that being my family and trying to help financially my family, and also taking on this pursuit as a professional triathlete. Mm-hmm.
I really like the phrase you use of rebalancing. we talk a lot about trying to keep things in balance, but by using the word rebalance, it's sort of like acknowledging that there will be times when more of your time is going to be spent towards training, more of your time will be spent towards travel and preparing for a race, but then there's other times where more of your time will be spent with family, like you just pointed out. And another field where the term rebalancing is used is in investing, retirement or financial investing. Different segments of investments for your savings grow at different rates. And so financial planners and advisors talk about rebalancing. Every 6 months, go back and look how everything is doing. And if you've got one segment that's growing massively, the sort of gut reaction might be, okay, let's put more money in the area that's growing quickly so we can make even more money. But then there's a huge risk with that, because if it crashes, you've got nothing left in the other two. So in the financial sense, rebalancing means taking a look at the areas where there's big growth, withdrawing some money out of that, putting them back into the slower growing areas, so that when things shift, you've maintained investments in that area and you retain a healthy portfolio. So I really like that comparison with triathlon. I think it's okay to dedicate more time to training if you're a professional triathlete, or if you're an elite, or if it's really important to you for whatever reason, as long as you have time to sit down, reassess, and acknowledge, okay, this was my build time into my period. Now I'm going back into a base or a taper, or it's my last 2 weeks before the race, or I'm in a transition time. And now's the time when I'm really going to focus on dedicating time with my family so that I can find that balance again and restore myself and let them know that I'm still part of their lives, before I go shift back into the other phase of training again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think communication is so key. It's so key, especially with your significant other, the person who's the closest with you. They really have to be on board. They have to be on board with what you're trying to pursue in your athletic endeavors. One thing that I do, and I sort of laugh about it, but it really helps myself and it helps my family. And this might be the kindergarten teacher in me, but every time I get my histogram and it has my builds and my overloads and my recovery weeks, I go to my family calendar and I get a red, yellow, and a green highlighter out.
Oh, interesting.
And on my recovery weeks, I highlight them green.
Oh, great.
And my overload weeks, I highlight them in red. Mm-hmm. And my build weeks, I highlight them in yellow, so that, my family understands, okay, mom might be a little cranky this week, or mom might not have any energy this week because she's in the red week.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. Because that can add stress on your part, not only to your family but also for you. If you know that the kids are going to be asking for whatever, they want to go blueberry picking, or they need to be taken to swim practice. That's probably stressful for you, just to know that they're going to be wanting things from you. So if your red, yellow, and green markers on the calendar help communicate information to them, that's probably relieves you of a little bit of anxiety that, this is an understood signal. Certainly, I'm sure you still talk about it, but what a great way to communicate your schedule and your time demands.
Right.
Yeah, that's a really practical tip. So how many weeks ahead of time do you typically have a schedule that you're able to plan out?
Usually I have a schedule for a few months leading into a goal race. So for Ironman Louisville, when I finished Ironman Texas in May, I had Ironman Louisville's schedule within the next week. So
great.
So I had that for a couple weeks leading into Ironman Louisville.
Mm-hmm. And then do you make adjustments to that as you go along towards the race? I mean, I'm sure there are little fine tunings that you can make.
As far as my schedule?
Yeah, as far as the schedule. Just, how strict is it in terms of the hours and the workouts?
You know what? I'm coached one-on-one with my coach, and I have daily communication with him.
That's great.
We're always talking. It's either through email or text messaging. Every workout, he gets my workout data. We communicate back and forth on that. How's the recovery going? One example is before Ironman Texas, I had a really great overload. I nailed everything, but the couple weeks coming off of the overload, I was just really, really fatigued, and that was my taper time. So I would communicate with him, and it wasn't unusual for Tim to pull a workout and say, I don't want you running today.
Sure.
The hay's in the barn. That's
okay.
a word. This is a lot. Hay's in the barn. I don't want you running today. It's more important that you recover. So it's all individual. It's on how you're recovering, how you're feeling. Do you feel an injury coming on? If you feel an injury coming on, then boy, you better nip it in the bud, because in 2 weeks, it's not going to be a little ache. It's going to be a big ache.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. The communication with the coach, being able to plan ahead. It's inspiring for me as a coach to, yet another reason to plan ahead for my athletes is so that they can plan with their families.
Right.
Yeah. Great. Well, I've really enjoyed getting to know you a little bit better, and I think we covered some pretty decent topics that applies to triathletes across the whole breadth of experience. Whether if you're listening to this, whether you're a beginner triathlete, whether you're middle of the pack age group, or whether you're finishing on the podium most races or considering turning pro, or even a pro who's listening, I think that a lot of the tips you shared, Amy, are real practical. And again, it's been really enjoyable talking with you and just hearing about your organic growth and sort of open-ended approach to training. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how you do in 2014. And I'll definitely be rooting for you in your upcoming races.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. I hope what I shared will help other people out there in the sport of triathlon. And I enjoy listening to your podcast when I'm on recovery rides. I'm always popping in the podcast. And listening to Sam and the Triathlon Research. So it was really, I feel honored that you wanted to speak to me. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. You have a great day and have fun blueberry picking today.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed today's show, please go to iTunes.com and review Triathlon Research Radio so that you can help us share this great information with more triathletes and grow the sport.